Welcome to MezFi Meets, a podcast where we bring you conversations from the cutting edge of blockchain, AI, financial services, and property with interesting people doing amazing things. I'm your host, Jerome Dadon, CEO of MezFi. On today's episode of MezFi Meets, we have an interview with me. Misha Vaxman from CLMG Group sat down with me to discuss crypto, MezFi, and a number of other different interesting topics. This week, we've been in Singapore for Token 2049 Festival. The MezFi team has met a lot of really interesting people. There are so many great projects in the space. So if anyone has any inkling to come to an event like Token, absolutely, you have to do it. It's been an amazing week of networking, meeting people, pitching, all sorts of awesome stuff. So absolutely, bucket list ticked off. You guys have to come and check it out. MezFi is investment manager in Australia. If you'd like to find out more about our products, go to www.mezfi.com. Let's jump into today's episode.
Okay. Now, have you always lived in Melbourne?
I have most of my life, 38 of my 39 years have been spent in Melbourne. I spent a year in New York just before I got married. My now wife and I spent a year there. It was like one of the best years of my life, apart from having kids and everything.
Yeah. Whereabouts were you in New York?
West Side, 60th Street, between 8th and Columbus, so 8th and 9th, right on the park. So it was killer. It was such a good spot.
And when did you start to look into crypto?
So my first foray into crypto was way, way, way long ago. So that was like 2014 times. I made an investment through CoinSpot in, I think it was Bitcoin or Ethereum at the time, one of the two. Small amount. I ended up getting out quite quickly, not really understanding it that well. And then I got out and I sort of wasn't in it for a while. A lot of the price action happened. I was sort of a late adopter, I would say. But then in probably 2019, 2020, I got back into it. And I traded quite a lot around the time when, everything got to an all-time high, very frothy, and then things came back down. So I didn't do overly well in that market, I have to say, but I learned a lot of lessons.
What brought you back to crypto?
So it was career, really. So I'd done how many years was I in hospitality? So I did. So my first job out of university, I did a commerce degree with finance, and it was property funds management. I did a couple of years in that. And then I wanted to move into something a bit more passionate. And so for some reason, I got into food. So I was a coffee entrepreneur for about 10 years. And as I got to the end of that journey, which was just before COVID, I ended up closing down my cafe just before COVID. And I didn't really know what I was going to do anymore. And so I was looking into investments. I looked at mezzanine finance investments. And I looked at crypto investments because, some people that I knew had done pretty well in crypto, and it was quite a, thing at the time. And I became enamored of the ecosystem as well as the community that was there because, for anyone who hasn't been in crypto before, or I guess has, the crypto community is one of those communities where, it's really supportive. So you go to an in real life meetup of people in the crypto community, and it's just killer. It's everybody wanting everyone to succeed. Really building together. And
so, do you think crypto gets a bad rap for a small percentage of people?
I'd say yes. I'd say crypto gets a bad rap for people who aren't even crypto people. To be honest, it's the scammers who use crypto for nefarious purposes that are the people who give crypto a bad rap. And some of crypto's most important tenets, like immutability and frictionless transfers, are what bring it down, I have to say. So, like I've discussed with some people before about how one of the things that would potentially breed mass adoption is if we could figure out how to develop similar to banks and banking rails where you can go and stop a payment or do something like that in order to stop nefarious actors from being able to just abscond with your cash. But it also kind of defeats the purpose of crypto
Yeah.
to a degree as well. So it's a hard one.
What's been one of your favorite uses of crypto to date, and just the blockchain in general?
That's a hard one. I mean, because there's so many really great ones. I mean, everyone loves meme coins and the casino and everything there. I can't say that I've been someone who's made a whole lot of money in that. I haven't, I haven't had a lot of wins in the in that meme coin world. I enjoy it, as a lot of people do, but it's not something that I get into a lot. So, look, in terms of use cases, I mean, global payments are obvious. Anyone who's gone and transferred money to a loved one overseas in the past knows that, it's $30 or however much it costs, and it can take sometimes 1, 2, 3 days sometimes. And with crypto, it's instantaneous and cheap. And so that is something that, the crypto's done, which has just revolutionized things. And I use crypto, and you asked me before off camera about Solana and what I think about Solana. So I use Solana for most of my cross-border payments because it costs cents on the dollar to transact. It happens very quickly. I mean, they even use stable coins on Solana now. There's I think, my podcast previously with Ariel Brand that we just did, he was saying he's an ambassador for Solana University. He was saying, and I didn't know this, that the volume of stablecoin transactions on Solana has outpaced Ethereum. The total value locked, I think, is higher on ETH, but the value of transactions is actually higher on Solana.
That's incredible. Tell me a little bit about mezzanine finance. What is it?
Mezzanine finance, a lot of people don't know about mezzanine finance. That's because it is traditionally the playground of institutions and high net worth individuals. Mezzanine finance is basically gap payments for property developments and business requirements. So say someone has a loan from the bank. Mm-hmm. They have money in the bank as well. Mm-hmm. But that loan plus their cash doesn't cover all of their expenses.
Right.
There are options there. One of those is mezzanine finance. And what it is basically a subordinated mortgage. So the you get paid behind the bank as a mezzanine finance provider, but you get paid more. So it costs more to get a mezzanine loan than it does for a normal loan. But that gap is made up by a mezzanine provider. And the thing that a lot of people ask would be, why would I get mezzanine finance? What's the point? It's like 15% per annum. It costs sometimes as a property developer. That sounds like a lot of money, right? Yeah. Sounds like a high interest. Considering that a first mortgage, the bank will only charge you 7% sometimes. But when you think that your alternatives are going out to people who equity providers. So basically, if you were to go to an investor and ask them for cash, that you're not getting a debt from, you're actually, they're buying into the project. If your returns on your project are 30% per annum, you're effectively paying them 30% per annum returns on your money. So if you think about it that way, 15% per annum is actually quite cheap. You're actually spending half the amount of money in the end. So your returns as the owner of the deal or whatever can be a lot higher.
And has this been readily available to everyone? Is this do you have to be a certain type of investor to be able to do this normally?
So normally you have to be a sophisticated investor, wholesale investor, to get involved in the kinds of deals that we're offering, the kind of, platform that we're offering. It's only wholesale investors. MezFi is actually bringing this to the masses, to everyone who fits our target market determination.
How does that open up opportunities for the mum and dad investors out there?
Well, I mean, look, mum and dad investors, there are options for them, obviously. Most of them are in, safer, lower return products. And for the most part, those are the products that, the banks, financial advisors and ASIC, I guess, want provided to mum and dad investors, because mum and dad investors are considered that they're less sophisticated and what have you. But I think we're coming into a day and an age where with the internet and the advent of information, I believe anyway that there should be more sophisticated products which are available to everyday people, obviously with the right checks and balances and compliance offered to everyday investors, so mums and dads can benefit from these things which have exclusively been the domain of instos and high net worths.
And is MezFi, people go, so is it a trading, is it a platform? What is it?
So currently MezFi is an investment manager. So we are an investment manager, and which means that we are the investment manager, or the manager for funds that we create using licenses, or a license from what's called a responsible entity. So a responsible entity is the company that holds the license, and we are what's called a corporate authorized representative. So they authorize us to be the investment manager of the fund that they do the compliance for. So right now we're going to be launching our first fund very soon, MezFi Fund 1, and non-correlated capital, primary securities limited are the responsible entity for the fund, and they will do all the compliance for that.
When you hear what's a DFT? You hear that acronym around, what is it?
Yeah, so DFT, you actually wouldn't have heard of a DFT before necessarily. DFT is a trademark term from MezFi, actually, and it stands for Digital Fund Token. So effectively, it's an NFT token, an ERC721 token, with artwork embedded within it, which was developed in conjunction with and by Justin Maller, who's an old friend of mine and a wonderful digital artist, one of the OGs in the space and in the NFT space as well. And so DFT is MezFi's proprietary Frankenstein of art and finance coming together to make a digital fund token, which is your digital representation of your investment in the fund.
What's an RWA and what's it got to do with MezFi?
RWA is an acronym for Real World Asset. So we've gone through a number of iterations of this RWA narrative over a few years. They used to be called STOs, security tokens. Now they're called RWAs. What it basically refers to is an on-chain representation of off-chain value or real-world value. So you get a token that's sitting on the Ethereum blockchain, Solana, can be Bitcoin now, and in and of itself, it doesn't hold the value, but the value is the entitlement that it gives you to an off-chain asset, a real-world asset. So RWAs can be anything from properties to, in our case, mezzanine finance, debt obligations, or specifically in our case, it's a reference to units in a fund. It can be things like cars. You can transact, all of these, something physical. You got it, exactly. And I think RWAs are a real narrative and a game changer for the blockchain industry.
So when you think about the physical and the digital, what do you think is the future that holds for Web3?
So one of the things that I think is really cool and interesting is for physical documents to be digitized using tokens in order to streamline processes like the settlement of houses, for instance. If you could have a verified document sitting online in your digital wallet, and on the other side, the counterparty had the same, you could potentially verifiably prove all of your documentation on the day that you purchase a property, and then create a settlement on that day without having to necessarily go to lawyers and everything. So that's a really cool one. Title deeds to cars, I think, the same thing again. You could sell a car, transfer the deed to the car on blockchain, and you're done. So these are the kinds of things that I think, if we could get our heads around the legality of it, could be really cool.
How far off do you think that is?
So from a technological standpoint, we're there. From a legal standpoint, it's anywhere from 10 years to never, depending on whether, but for good reason to a degree. I'll qualify that by saying that what I was saying before about friction. So one thing that's really important to remember is that scammers and bad actors always take advantage of frictionless environments. So when there's no checks and balances to things, is when scammers win the most. So you've got to be really careful, and governments are, and justifiably careful about technologies that remove frictions from situations, because once they're gone, if that makes sense.
It does. Talk to me about the plans for MezFi this year.
Okay. As I said, we're launching MezFi Fund 1. I am crossing my fingers that's happening this month. It might happen next month, but it is happening imminently. And I'm really excited about that. And then if we raise well prior to the end of the raise window, we'll launch and do our first deal as soon as we get critical mass. Thereafter, I'm looking at potential other jurisdictions for MezFi, whether it's in England, in Europe, and America. So that's potentially down the line this year as well. And then other kinds of funds. I don't want to spill the secret sauce, but I've got a couple of other more crypto-related fund ideas that are in the pipeline as well.
What would you say makes MezFi different to anything else in the market?
So the first is what we talked about before, the democratization of investment class. So mezzanine finance being offered to mums and dads and retail investors hasn't been done before. Number two is the token aspect. So what the token does is it brings unparalleled transparency about the kinds of deals that we're bringing to the table on chain. So you can look at any time and see, yep, this token, this investment that I've made has invested in this basket of deals. And then number three is that that merge of art and finance, which I'm hoping people will find really interesting, because it's not something that's been done before. And so I really hope that the take up of that will mean that in future funds we'll get other artists involved, and more artwork associated with the different funds and the different things that we do as well, which will be really inspiring as well.
How do you give people peace of mind that will be investing in MezFi in the future that have never invested in crypto before?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So the peace of mind, there's a couple of things that we want to give people in terms of peace of mind for people who have never invested in crypto before. So MezFi Fund 1, it's a regulated fund. So it is ASIC registered. We have a responsible entity who take care of the compliance. We have our insurance, so we're insured for professional indemnity, and we have our administrator who is renowned the world over for Web3 crypto administration as well as normal traditional finance administration. So you're in quite safe hands in terms of the back end of what we're doing from a regulatory and an administrative and compliance perspective.
And the golden question is, how can people find out more about MezFi?
Well, you can go to www.mezfi.com, of course. I would suggest that you check out more episodes of both MezFi Meets podcast, as well as having a look on our socials. We have a Medium, www.medium.com/MezFi, where we discuss different topics about MezFi, and you can call us. Our number is on the website, and I'm on the end of the phone. You can also email me, Jerome@mezfi.com. I'm more than happy to answer any questions directly as well.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for watching today's episode, guys. If you'd like to find out more about us and our products, go to www.mezfi.com, sign up for our newsletter, and you can stay up to date on everything MezFi related. If you'd like to follow us on socials, go to www.linkedin.com/company/MezFi, and X, it's x.com/_MezFi. Again, thank you so much for watching today. Had a great week in Singapore, 2040 at Token 2049. Went and walked around the GP qualifying yesterday, which was amazing too. What a city! Everyone has to come visit one day. It's an amazing place. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and catch you next time for the next episode. Thank you.